We're now going to be talking about some of the more common deductions that you can claim against your estate when calculating estate duty. So we've got property plus deemed property, and from that we deduct deductions. So these are some of the more common ones. Please make sure that you work through the rest of section 4. The first one is funeral and deathbed expenses. So if Mr. X dies and 5,000 Rand is spent on his funeral, that 5,000 Rands may be deducted. Now, these expenses, SARS, the Commissioner, will assess it as being reasonable. So if you go and you spend 10 million Rands on a funeral where there's people doing somersaults and blowing fireworks, and you've got Mariah Carey singing something, SARS will not allow that from your estate because that's excessive. So it needs to be reasonable. Then you are also allowed to deduct foreign property of the deceased, certain foreign property. Now, you'll remember when we looked at property, it basically includes property from wherever it is in the world. This foreign property is similar to what we see in section 56(1)(g) of the nations tax, and that is if you were a non-resident first, so I was born in America, so let's say I was born in the USA, and whilst I was a non-resident, I bought a house in New York. Then I came to South Africa and I became a South African resident, and now I pass away. This property will be included in my property, but I can claim a deduction for it then. The same thing is, let's say I have an aunt in the USA who has a flat there. She's a non-resident. She passes away and I inherit the flat, so now I own the flat, this flat, and I'm a South African resident. If I then die, it'll be included in my property, but it will be as a deduction here. And the last situation you'll remember is if I was in one of these situations, so either I was a non-resident that had the property before I became a resident, or I inherited from a non-resident like we saw, and that was property A, and I sell that property and buy property B, which is also a foreign property, also in New York, let's say, and I then die, that property B, which is then the property I have, will be included in my property, and then as a deduction here. So the same as 56(1)(g). Any amount which I owe to South African creditors. So I owe the bank money for my mortgage on my house, I own a clothing store, some money on my account, I owe SARS money for income tax, all of those will be deductions from my estate, because they're going to have to be paid. If I, in my will, leave anything, so bequeath anything to a public benefit organization, I can claim that as a deduction. So let's say I had 10 million Rands of value, this is my gross value, so property and deemed property, and I donate 8 million Rands in cash to a public benefit organization, I can claim a deduction. Then section 4Q, this one is very important because it's so common and students often forget it. And this is by far the most important one to remember from that. And that is anything that you leave to your spouse is claimed as a deduction. So let's say I had let's say I die and I only have 10 million Rands in my bank account, just to make it simple. And I leave that full 10 million Rands to my spouse. The full 10 million Rands will be allowed as a deduction. So if you leave everything to the spouse, there's no estate duty. And that's because your spouse, when he or she passes away, they will then have it will also be included in the estate. Then, if you had any books, pictures, statues, or other art in your estate, it will be included in your property. If you had then lent it to the state, so to the government, so for example, let's say I have a painting and I give it to the State Museum, the National Museum, to use, I lend it, then I can claim a deduction. But now this is very important. This period that you lend it to the state must be for at least 30 years. So 30 years or more, and I must have died during the period that I lent it to the state. So what does that mean? It means that I have to give it to the state, lend it to the state before I die. So let's say I die on the 9th of November. I must have given this lent it to the state any time before the 9th of November. Because it tells you I must have died during the period. So let's say I gave it to them the day before on the 8th, then I died during the period. And it mustn't be on the date of death that there must be 30 years left. It must be on the date that I gave it. So let's say I gave it to them in 1970 for a period of, let's say, 60 years. And it is now 2020, so 50 years have passed, right? If I die now, it will still be allowed. There's only 10 years of the 60 years left, but at the time when I gave it, 1970, there was 30 years. And then any master's fees, the master fees are for the master of the court, because when you die, your executor will have to submit all sorts of documentation and calculations to the master of the court, who has to then look at the process and approve it, and approve your will, and approve the distributions and so forth, and wrap up your estate. That master of the court has a fee. The executor also has a fee. I want you to understand that, strictly speaking, this is not covered extensively in your syllabus, so this should probably be given to you in an exam. But if it's not given to you, I just want you to have a bit of an understanding of how it works. The master's fee is calculated on a sliding scale, which you'll see on the next slide. The executor's remuneration is calculated as a value of 3.5% multiplied by the value of the property under the executor's control. So that property and deemed property that you have, anything there that the executor controls, so the executor has to give it to someone, or sell it to someone, or take care of it during this process, 3.5% of that value will go to the executor. So this can be very lucrative if you work with expensive estates. So it's property plus the deemed property, right? And then we say less deductions. So we calculate it on the value before the deductions is 3.5. So that's why it's important. Most of the deemed property was not under the executor's control. For example, a donation mortis causa, that's already gone to the person who receives it. Right, it's not in the executive control, so we don't calculate on that. As I said, guys, this is a little bit more complicated and outside of the Estate Duty Act, so I'm just giving you a bit of information background there. How does this master's fee work? Right, so the master's fee is determined in terms of the Administration of Estates Act, right, the Estates Act, and that's not in your syllabus. They publish any changes in the Government Gazette. It works as follows. You look at the gross value of the estate. Now again, the gross value of the estate is property plus deemed property. That gives us the gross value. You look at that value, that determines the master's fee. If that value is less than 250,000 rands, or 250,000 or less, then there's 0 rands, so there's no master's fee. If it is more than 250,000, or 250,000 or more rather, sorry, but less than 400,000, so this is 0 to 249,999, like that. If it's 250,000 or more but less than 400,000, it's 600 rands, just 600 rands. If it is more than 400,000, then you increase that 600 rands by 200 rands for each complete further 100,000 rands. The maximum that it can be is 7,000 rands. Okay, so let me explain to you. So let's say your estate is 2.8 million rands, like that, the gross value, all right? The master's fee in this case will be, it will be on the first 400,000, it will be 600. Right, so then we say, I'm just showing you this for calculation, 2.8 minus 400,000 gives us 2.4. We divide that 2.4 by 100,000, so that gives us 24. That 24 times 200 gives us 4,800, and we add that together, and that gives us our total master's fee in this case of 5,400 on 2.8. Now what I want you to see is they say complete further 100,000. So let's say this was not 2.8 here, right? Let's say it was 2860 like that. So 2860 minus 400,000, right, gives us 2460. If we divide that by 100,000, we get 24.6. So that 0.6 there, that decimal is not a complete 100,000. That's that 60,000 there. Because 100,000 times 0.6 gives us 60,000. So that we ignore. So you ignore that 24. You just, that 0.6, you go to the 24. So you take it, not round it up, you don't go to 2.9. You don't do that. You go to 2.8, the last complete one. And you work it out. Right, so 24. So the maximum is 7,000. So the gross value of the estate, if the gross value of the estate is 3.6 million, it will work out like that. So if you say 3.6 million, right, here's the master's fee. On the first 400,000 rands, again, it is 600 rands. So if we deduct the 400,000 there, we left with 3.2. 3.2 divided by 100,000 gives us 32. 32 times 200 gives us 6,400. 6,400 plus this 600 here gives us 7,000. That's the max. So if your estate is 3.6 million or more, it's 7,000. So even if your estate was 5 million rands, it's limited then to 7,000 rands. That's the maximum that it can be. Section 4A then gives us an abatement of 3.5 million rands. This is deducted from the net value of the estate. So we say property plus deemed property, less our deductions. That gives us the net value. From that, you get a Section 4A abatement of 3.5 million rands, which basically implies that if your estate is worth, your net value of your estate is worth less than 3.5 million rands, there will be no amount payable. That's the dutiable amount. Now, this 3.5 million rands works as follows. If you had a spouse that passed away before you, then the abatement that you get is 3,500 rands times 2, so your spouse's abatement, less the amount which your spouse used. Okay, so let me explain to you what this means, practically where this comes from. Property and deemed property. Let's say you had 10 million rands of property, and the only thing that you leave is you leave 8 million of that to your spouse. Right, remember there's a deduction if you leave anything to your spouse. So that means 2 million rands was there. So, right, that whole 2 million rands, there will be no estate duty. So this is Mr. A. He leaves because he left 8 million to his spouse. Now Mrs. A. Just to make it simple, assume that the value of her, or I'm just going to do it here, she dies a couple of years later. Assume that she only had that 8 million rands, just to make it simple. Right. No deduction. So it gives her 8 million rands here. This Section 4A abatement of hers now, as she gets 3.5 million rands for herself, plus another 3.5 million rands for her spouse, because she had a spouse. So 7. From that, you must deduct how much did her spouse use. How much did her spouse use of that 3.5 million? He used 2 million rands. Right, so that gives us 5 million rands. So she has a 5 million rands abatement then. Right, then, if there was more than one spouse in a marriage, the portion of the abatement not used is split equally between all spouses. So let's say Mr. A was married to Mrs. A, Mrs. B, Mrs. C, Mrs. D. 4 people. When Mrs. A now gets hers, it's 3.5 million rands, right? Plus then 3.5 million minus the 2 million rands which Mr. A used, so 1.5 million, So 1.5 million, she is one of 4 spouses. So she can get an extra 1.5 million divided by 4. So 375. So she gets 3.5, which is her own, plus 375. That is what she will get. So 38750. So instead of 5 million there, she would get 38750. Right, guys, obviously not as common to see in questions.